Hello, and I welcome viewers from Afghanistan, the United States, and around the world. This is Afghanistan Now. I'm Jack Pagano, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and a strategic communications government contractor. I've been in Afghanistan for many years and also worked in Iraq during the surge. I've been in the fight. I know the people, leadership, and what it's needed for success. I lived in villages, cities, and on bases. Yes, what a big challenge for Afghanistan. And what can this challenge of peace, freedom, and hope bring to the current government and the people of Afghanistan? It's been 15 long years that U.S. and coalition forces have waged a battle to win the war against terrorism. Stop the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and now Daesh. Up next, an interview with Mahmoud Noorzai, a young man on the go. He has a spirit that is lighting the torch for Afghans. Latest news, secret meetings are going on in Doha, Qatar, with the Taliban and the Afghan-spirited government. The issue coming up is what is going to happen with the peace plan between the two, and if it really does happen, and then of course finding a way to meet in the middle. We'll let you know the latest, and if the talks prove to be fruitful. And still no answers to the reason behind a green on blue attack of 2 Americans. A man dressed in an A&P uniform opened fire on a U.S. soldier and a U.S. contractor, killing both. This is the first green on blue attack in more than 2 years. We'll be back with our guest, Mahmoud Noorzai, who may provide answers to why this tragedy occurred and to what to expect from the Afghan millennial generation.
تغییر مکان، مهاجرت و پناهندگی.
در کیس قانونیتان همیشه هر چیز بنویسین.
راههای قانونی کار و زندگی.
At least half of that time has to be inside the United States, and you can't have any one trip that's longer than 6 months and definitely not longer than 1 year.
بله. این همه را در برنامه معلوماتی آیین از تلویزیون کابل تماشا کنید.
به دنیا رستوران خوش آمدید. با غذاهای متنوع، آشپزان مجرب و فضای گرم در خدمت شما می باشیم. از غذاهای لذیذ ما 7 روز هفته برای صرف غذای چاشت و شام لذت ببرید. دنیا رستوران با مدیریت هاشم عباسی در قلب الکساندریا ویرجینیا آماده پذیرایی از شماست. کیترینگ برای محافل خوشی شما در ویرجینیا، واشنگتن دی سی و مریلند با بیمه بیش از $1 میلیون نیز پذیرفته می شود. شماره تماس 703 212 85 11. برای معلومات بیشتر با وبسایت dunyabanquet.com مراجعه نمایید. دنیا رستوران، مهماندار همیشگی شما.
Welcome back to Afghanistan Now. I'm honored to have a young Afghan on the go, Mahmoud Noorzai. Nice to be here. Mahmoud knows all about living here in the United States and, of course, living in Afghanistan. He was there for many years. And he knows all about the young millennials of Afghanistan. He's an enabler who galvanized the youth all the time. He understands what is needed to secure peace and security. Welcome. How are the young millennials, which make up 60% of Afghanistan, going to make a difference?
Thank you so much, Jack, for having me, and thanks for the excellent program that you have initiated to inform the public in Afghanistan and raise the concerns and voices of the Afghans and as well as the international community. As you have rightly mentioned, Afghanistan's new generation have been, in fact, a great asset of the country, and they have been in the front line of fighting the enemies and the terrorists, and by being with the Afghan National Security Forces, and as well as being on the political front and civil society front. And you have mentioned the millennial generation, and We have experienced three transitions in Afghanistan, which was the security transition and the political transition. And there was also the other aspect of transition that have not been discussed widely, and it's the generation transition. Afghanistan indeed is a country with the youngest population in the region, where 65% of its people are below the age of 30, which means that we have to invest in the new generation, and we have to give a chance and an opportunity for this great masses of the Afghan society to basically decide for themselves what kind of society and what kind of government and what kind of engagement they would need to have, not with amongst themselves, but also with region and the international community.
You were very young when 9/11 happened. As you know, 9/11 is 16 years ago. You know, you were a young kid. What did that do to the young Afghans living in Afghanistan?
Definitely, 9/11 have been a very transforming event, but in the same time very tragic event for the United States, where so many innocent people have lost their lives. But for Afghanistan, we were trapped in a dictator, in a suppressive regime of the Taliban, where there were less opportunities for the Afghans to basically express themselves. Women were not allowed to work or educate themselves. And Afghanistan was isolated, and we were totally in a failed state, and where the Taliban were simply allowing all the terrorists from the region, from the all corners of the world, to basically come and initiate attacks against the countries that Afghanistan have never thought.
So the coalition comes, President Karzai, and now President Ghani. We haven't seen a whole lot. Why?
So I think there were several mistakes have been made along the way, and one of them have been that there was less attention made on fighting corruption in Afghanistan, both on the international community side as well as the Afghan government, which have failed massively to tackle this phenomenon. But the national unity government had this opportunity, and is still having this opportunity. We have heard in the Brussels and the Warsaw summit, and as well as the Brussels summit, that Afghanistan were pledged over $15+ billion. So this provides in unique opportunity again for the Afghan government to come up with a decisive and a very comprehensive plan to tackle this problem of corruption, settle down their internal issues, and unite rather than being divided on several unimportant issues. And I know there are several talks going on, and there are protests happening on a different.
But things are slow. I mean, a young kid right now, many young kids, there's a lot. Unemployment is big in Afghanistan. Young kids who have a degree from Kabul University, they can't get a job.
That's true.
I mean,
I think the government have been very less focused on solving this phenomenon, because if you don't employ your people, and if you don't employ your citizens, certainly the enemy would come over and use this opportunity to use the Afghans against their government. And we have seen this surge happening in Helmand and in Kunduz, and the Afghans that have been unemployed for many years and they have not been given the opportunity to basically integrate into the society, eventually they had to join the enemy lines. And I think the national unity government has a responsibility to the people, and they have promised that they would focus on.
But how long is it going to take? I mean, this is now 2 years. Karzai is gone. It's been Ghani and Abdullah since 2 years plus, and they're waiting. Give us 30 seconds before we go to break.
I think they have to wrap up their sleeves, and they have to come up with a plan, and they have the money, they have the pledge from the international community, and they have to start working on a constructive plan that how they are going to employ the Afghans. And the potential is there. The Afghans are very, very vibrant and creative people. I think if they provide the opportunity, the Afghans will do well, as they have done through the history, and I hope that they would come up with a plan rather than being divided on several issues that are not relevant and that are not helping the country and the people.
We'll be back with more, Mahmoud, right after this. This is Afghanistan Now.
به دنیا رستوران خوش آمدید. با غذاهای متنوع، آشپزان مجرب و فضای گرم در خدمت شما می باشیم. از غذاهای لذیذ ما 7 روز هفته برای صرف غذای چاشت و شام لذت ببرید. دنیا رستوران با مدیریت هاشم عباسی در قلب الکساندریا ویرجینیا آماده پذیرایی از شماست. کیترینگ برای محافل خوشی شما در ویرجینیا، واشنگتن دی سی و مریلند با بیمه بیش از $1 میلیون نیز پذیرفته می شود. شماره تماس 703 212 85 11. برای معلومات بیشتر با وبسایت dunyabanquet.com مراجعه نمایید. دنیا رستوران، مهماندار همیشگی شما.
Welcome back to Afghanistan Now. Before we continue our discussion with Mahmoud Narzai, here's some facts to think about. In 15 years, the United States spent $800 billion in Afghanistan, and 2,300 lives were lost. 1/10 of the country is in Taliban control, with 25% of the country in the Taliban fight. That's 35% of the country involved in the war against terrorism. Nearly 40% of the country lives on less than $1.35 a day. Everyone agrees something must be done. I'm now back with Mahmoud. How can people live on $1.35?
Well, not only people cannot live basically in poverty, in a perpetual state, people also need to live in peace and stability. Afghanistan, as you know, have been in war from the past 4 decades. So I think the first and the foremost important step for Afghanistan and the Afghan society and the Afghan government, it is to basically start initiative, constructive plan to reconcile with all the elements, including the Taliban, and we are glad that the Hizb Islami are reconciling with the government, and they will be part of the Afghan society as an Afghan and living in their own country. So peace and reconciliation is foremost the important step. Once we have peace, once we have Afghans not fighting one another, then the government will have this space to basically implement their economic plans. So I do agree with you. There are so many things that needs to be done in Afghanistan, and the most important element in that progress would be peace and reconciliation. Of course, it has to be simultaneous. You have to work on the economy, create jobs, as well as...
I mean, it sounds all nice and wonderful, but it's not happening. So you as a young guy who can galvanize the young leaders of the future, what do they have to do? Do they have to go knock on the president's palace door and say, come on, President Ghani, come on, Abdullah, give us a chance? I don't see it. What are you going to do?
Well, the Afghan public have been very consistent in raising their voice, and you've seen in the streets of Kabul there were protests going on several issues. Well, we will not discuss the different factors behind it, but basically the Afghans have been, the civil society have been consistent in terms of pushing the government and asking the government to basically implement what they have promised. But I think the fundamental challenge for the government is their internal fractions. We as an Afghan, we don't belong to the Cold War generation. Right. We are the millennial generation, as have you mentioned, and we want them to basically give the Afghan a decent lifestyle, that they would be allowed to work and they would be allowed to serve their country according to their potentials. So it's never going to help Afghans to be divided on ethnic factors or follow the Afghans who are extreme in their...
So what do you think can happen in the next 6 months to a year? What has to happen?
I think we hear that the reconciliation process with the Hizb Islami is a major milestone in terms of bringing the war to a certain conclusion with that particular faction. But I think what's going to happen is the government will initiate, as it promised in the Brussels conference, a series of reform agendas, including tackling corruption. We hear some good stories and good news from the government that they have been active in terms of pinpointing the areas where they can do more and remove corrupt officials or bring them to justice.
But it's jobs, jobs, jobs. Just like one of the candidates mentioned, it's all about jobs, jobs, jobs.
True. We have to look to the unemployment factor in the context of transition. When the transition happened, the economic transition, we saw the international community have left substantially, and as they left, majority of the economic activities have reduced due to the aids and due to the spending that they were doing while they were in Afghanistan. So partially that's the reason to the massive unemployment, and I think it's not only appropriate or correct only to rely on government to provide job and employment, but the private sector have been very active in Afghanistan, but they only can do more when there is peace and security. So I think the foremost important thing for the Afghans is to have a stable environment and a peaceful environment to exploit the opportunities that are available. Afghans are very entrepreneurial in their practice. They can create jobs, they're very creative, and the government can only help in achieving that milestone. And I think President Ghani is the right person to do that sort of job. But of course, he has been challenged on several issues. And
well, of course, he has an Abdullah right there watching every step.
Yeah.
We'll be back with more Mahmoud when we come back with Afghanistan Now.
به دنیا رستوران خوش آمدید. با غذاهای متنوع، آشپزان مجرب و فضای گرم در خدمت شما می باشیم. از غذاهای لذیذ ما 7 روز هفته برای صرف غذای چاشت و شام لذت ببرید. دنیا رستوران با مدیریت هاشم عباسی در قلب الکساندریا ویرجینیا آماده پذیرایی از شماست. کیترینگ برای محافل خوشی شما در ویرجینیا، واشنگتن دی سی و مریلند با بیمه بیش از $1 میلیون نیز پذیرفته می شود. شماره تماس 703 212 85 11. برای معلومات بیشتر با وبسایت dunyabanquet.com مراجعه نمایید. دنیا رستوران، مهماندار همیشگی شما.
Welcome back to Afghanistan Now. This segment is Around the Horn. We're bringing you information from DC and Afghanistan that can be used by you, the viewer. We're all about providing information that will give you a better understanding to the many challenges in Afghanistan and for Afghans who are living in the USA and around the world. A dynamic exhibit is ready for viewing at the Smithsonian Institute. It's The Art of the Quran, Treasures from the Museum of Turkish and Islamic Arts, a first major show in the United States featuring more than 60 of the most important Quran manuscripts ever produced. Manuscripts from Turkey, Iran, and Afghanistan. The Art of the Quran showcases a rich history. It's 1,000 years of manuscripts. Certainly an era we must never forget. We'll be back with more from Mahmoud right after the break.
به دنیا رستوران خوش آمدید. با غذاهای متنوع، آشپزان مجرب و فضای گرم در خدمت شما می باشیم. از غذاهای لذیذ ما 7 روز هفته برای صرف غذای چاشت و شام لذت ببرید. دنیا رستوران با مدیریت هاشم عباسی در قلب الکساندریا ویرجینیا آماده پذیرایی از شماست. کیترینگ برای محافل خوشی شما در ویرجینیا، واشنگتن دی سی و مریلند با بیمه بیش از $1 میلیون نیز پذیرفته می شود. شماره تماس 703 212 85 11. برای معلومات بیشتر با وبسایت dunyabanquet.com مراجعه نمایید. دنیا رستورانت مهماندار همیشگی شما.
Welcome back to Afghanistan Now. We continue our discussion with Mahmoud Nourzai. If you just joined us, Mahmoud is a young Afghan on the go. He is now here in the United States, but he knows all about Afghanistan and millennials. We believe the millennials are the key to the future of Afghanistan, and everyone knows the youth can bring social change via social media and just interaction with the powers to be. So, what are the solutions? We continue to talk. What, as a young guy, what do you think the government needs to do now?
Well, the government, of course, has its responsibility towards its people and its citizens. But I believe the Afghans can always do more, and they have always done more what they have been asked. The government, of course, is challenged by several issues. There is ongoing fight with the Taliban, but they have reconciled with one element of the insurgents, which is the Hizb Islami, and I think it's a great step that the government have initiated in terms of bringing peace and reconciliation to the government, to the Afghan society. But I think they can always do more in terms of uniting people, bringing all Afghans from all corners of the country and giving them a higher purpose that's greater than everybody, than each Afghan. They can all adhere to, and they can all work together to achieve that common objective, which could be the Afghanistan's prestige in the region, which could be the Afghanistan's position as it have been historically in the region, and it could also be progress and prosperity. So the government has a job toward its people, giving them purpose and objective.
Well, the young people have to put the government on the spot so they can do this. We'll be back with one more question for Mahmoud after the break.
به دنیا رستورانت خوش آمدید. با غذاهای متنوع، آشپزان مجرب و فضای گرم در خدمت شما می باشیم. از غذاهای لذیذ ما 7 روز هفته برای صرف غذای چاشت و شام لذت ببرید. دنیا رستورانت با مدیریت هاشم عباسی در قلب الکساندریا ویرجینیا آماده پذیرایی از شماست. کیترینگ برای محافل خوشی شما در ویرجینیا، واشنگتن دی سی و مریلند با بیمه بیش از $1 میلیون نیز پذیرفته می شود. شماره تماس 703 212 85 11. برای معلومات بیشتر با وبسایت dunyabanquet.com مراجعه نمایید. دنیا رستورانت مهماندار همیشگی شما.
Welcome back to Afghanistan Now. In this segment, Then and Now, we'll focus on what happened years ago and what is happening now. I would like to showcase a video that was used many years ago. I produced the Combined Security and Transition Command CSTICA Action Overview. It was a great video, and it really showcased the Afghan Army and the Afghan police in action. Let's take a look.
تا زمان گپ استریت.
Okay.
وامی داشت.
It's a global war against terrorism, and CSTICA is on the front lines.
Used to be in here, head down, looking along the barrel.
The Combined Security Transition Command is helping to bring security and stability to Afghanistan. A joint command under CENTCOM, CSTICA is on the cutting edge of progress, 24/7, 365 days a year. C-STICA's mission: train, equip, advise, and mentor the Afghan National Army and National Police.
This is a tough mission, and in fact, it takes place all across Afghanistan.
The Afghan National Army and the National Police working together to bring security and stability to the people of Afghanistan.
It's definitely a challenge, but a lot of these AMP that we're training want to better the country. It's just making sure they have the equipment and the training that they need to especially survive out here.
This is a trainable force. They're all very good guys. They're eager to learn. They want to do the right thing.
They're aggressive. They want to be part of this army. They see a change in their country, and they're proud to be part of that.
The stakes are high, and C-STICA is at the tip of the spear in helping the Afghan National Security Forces build combat capability. It's a huge challenge, and some of the muscle behind the mission lives and works at Camp Phoenix. In 2007, it was the 218th Brigade Combat Team from the South Carolina National Guard.
Barrels and shoes gotta go up there.
In 2008, it will be the 27th Brigade Combat Team from the New York National Guard. Nearly 4,000 strong, engaged in the war against terrorism. At Camp Phoenix, living quarters, PX, all the comforts of a home away from home.
Camp Phoenix is like a small town in South Carolina. Everything you want's here. You don't have to go off post for anything.
When you call out the Guard, you do in fact call out America. The National Guard is proof positive that the American people are solidly behind them.
C-STICA is here to train, equip, advise, and mentor. From Herat to Kabul, C-STICA is everywhere in Afghanistan. Training Afghanistan's commandos. Mentoring senior enlisted Afghan soldiers in the art of soldiering. Advising young police officers in the classroom and on the front lines in the Kandahar region. America's finest, helping a young and aggressive police and army. It's valuable experience that counts in an austere and agile environment. Building a combat-capable Afghan army and professional police force is what C-STICA is all about.
This soldier here is a very good soldier. He's very committed, very enthusiastic.
They are learning fast. It's coming together. All coalition forces are adding their bit.
America will never forget 9/11. C-STICA stays vigilant in the fight for freedom. 24 hours, 7 days a week. A relentless fight to stop terrorism.
These guys are ready for peace. They've had all these years of problems, fighting and struggles, and they're ready for peace.
This is the future. This is why we're here.
With great soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines in this command, anything is possible.
Afghanistan is depending on the Combined Security Transition Command. Train, equip, advise, and mentor.
The video showcases why the United States and coalition forces are in Afghanistan. And I do want to point out the general that was in the video, the commander of the C-STICA command, General Robert Cohn, passed away a couple of weeks ago. We all loved General Cohn, and he was such a great mentor and advisor. Before we go, it's all about training, mentoring, and advising, and that's what the Army and police are doing. Mahmoud, one last word.
The international community have been very, of course, helpful in terms of establishing the Afghan National Security Forces, and then the mission that have been undertaken in 2014 and beyond, the train, advise, and assist mission. I think one gap that exists is in terms of equipping the Afghan Air Force. And we hear quite often here in Washington that the United States ultimately have to come up with a decision that are they going to equip the Afghan National Security Forces, its air force or not, because you cannot fight an enemy that have pledged to undermine the government, to challenge the security, while the Afghan security forces lacks proper air force capability to support the troops on the ground and to attack their position. So I think that's one key factors in terms of having a widened security problems in Afghanistan, is that the international community have paid attention, but not at the earlier stage. So eventually they're going to have to decide that are they going to equip the Afghan National Security Forces Air Force or not? Because
it's understood we're going to be there for a long time, making sure that we can train, equip, mentor, and advise. So thank you so much for coming into the show. And until the next Afghanistan Now, I'm Jack Pagano. Thanks for joining us.